Good evening. The opinions and statements voiced by our guests do not necessarily reflect the opinions of this network. Enjoy the shows.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army. Army officers say the missile, found sometime last week, has been inspected at Roswell, New Mexico, and sent to Wright Field, Ohio, for further inspection.
Now, historic films made in the spring of 1948 and just released show Eniwetok preparing for heavily guarded and still largely secret tests of new atomic weapons. The test's purpose is to measure atomic effects on thousands of different materials, 30,000 tons of them, not, as at Bikini, to prove military effectiveness.
San Francisco police say that 9 persons have been arrested in a narcotics raid on the headquarters of the Grateful Dead, a widely popular singing group. 2 members of the group, Rod McKernan and Robert Weir, and their business manager, Danny Rifkin, have been booked on suspicion of possessing narcotics.
3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff. 32 minutes past the hour. Liftoff on Apollo 11. Tower cleared.
We got a roll program. Neil Armstrong reporting the roll and pitch program, which puts Apollo 11 on a proper heading.
I'm going to step off the limb now. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Well, strange lights are causing a viral buzz on YouTube. Could we have caught extraterrestrial activity on a recent newscast? Brandon Arroyo investigates.
As the newscast ended, the controversy began back on September 26th. What is that light shining in the back of the dark night sky?
With coverage reaching all the way back to 1948, for over 70 years, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Now, Fate Magazine Radio is carrying on that tradition of setting the standard in paranormal talk radio as we report and discuss some of the most mysterious and perplexing phenomena imaginable in this strange world of ours. Now, here is your host of Fate Magazine Radio, Kat Hobson.
Good evening. Welcome to Fate Mag Radio, the online voice of Fate Magazine. I'm so glad that you are here. You know, we have interesting guests quite often, and I always love being able to learn from them. It's a rare gift to be able to do what I do, and to be able to welcome someone is just a neat thing. Tonight's guest is Reverend Michael Carter. He is the author of multiple titles, including Alien Scriptures, Extraterrestrials in the Holy Bible, God Consciousness, A 30-Day Journey to Achieve God-Centered Thinking, which I like. His newest book, Initiation, The Spiritual Transformation of the Experiencer. And that came out this April, and all of his books are available on Amazon.com as well as BarnesandNoble.com. So I'm interested for y'all to learn about him and to let him share his experiences with you. So without further ado, hello there, Michael Carter. Thank you for being here.
Hello, Kat. Thank you for having me on. I was looking forward to this. I hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday. I mean, the time is flying. In a couple weeks, you'll be writing 2022 on your checks. And
well, maybe not a couple of
wow.
weeks. It takes a while.
Yeah. I know, right? That's if we're trying to be on time. But
true.
Yeah. It's good. It's good to be here.
Well, I'm glad that you're here. You know, I have been astounded by how quickly time has been flowing.
Oh, my goodness.
You know, our whole world got turned upside down. Everyone was dealing with something that was frightening and unknown. And, you know, the humans as a species don't deal well with that. So nobody does. Yeah. And, you know, now we're coming through that, I feel. And, you know, it's just so interesting because I felt with my family that everyone was much more appreciative of the time to be able to be together.
Okay.
So I'm hearing that a lot. What about you?
Well, you know, I'm an introvert, at least on the Myers-Briggs personality scale, mechanism, we'll call it what you will. And I like the way they define it. They define, you know, energetically. Do you get your energy from other people? Which is how they define extrovert. An introvert gets their energy from being alone. I had no problem being alone. I had no problem during COVID at the very beginning, over 18 months ago. You know, I try to take care of myself. I keep my immune system high. And for my friends who are introverted, who needed that energy to feed off of, it was a living hell because they couldn't connect.
Yes.
Whereas for me, I welcomed it. Maybe not in the exact way the universe sent it, but you take what you get and you navigate it. But you know, and you negotiate it. But it was good for me. I in the sense of I got to spend that alone time. It was hard to minister to people. At times I couldn't get to the hospital. Some of friends in college were very sick, some dying, not necessarily from COVID, but I couldn't get to see them, so it made my ministry a little more difficult. Now, when we opened again July of this year, and this was before the Delta variant, I mean, it was packed because people were so glad to get out and what have you. And I think the good part of that was that we got to see how connected we really are. We got to miss each other. A lot of stuff that we took for granted was taken just to see someone's face, just to see them smile, just to give a hug. You know, we take that for granted. You couldn't see it. You couldn't do it. And even now, it took a virus for most of us to realize that everybody's essential. You know, remember at the beginning, these are our essential workers. And well, we're all essential, because we're all sentient beings. And so, you know, sometimes it takes something like this to it's like having cold water thrown in your face. But then we go back to business as usual. And that's where sometimes I believe we get lost.
I would agree. Everyone socially, if you're out in public, if you're reading the news, if you're watching the news, if you're doing social media and you get the pop-ups and whatnot, everyone knows that not all things are rosy right now coming out of this. And that there's a lot of antisocial behavior that just is a little tough, I think, for people to cope with. It's not necessarily individuals. Sometimes it seems maybe like a group think. And that's where I think that your books are a good option. You know, I really like your God Consciousness book.
Thank you.
To be able to go through the 30-day period to God-centered thinking. And I think things like that are good for humanity. What do you consider God-centered thinking? What are you striving for there?
Yeah, boy, you are really good. I love these questions. And I mean that. I mean,
Thank
this
you.
is beautiful. I really do. Okay, for me, because God is not a person, I don't even know, to be honest with you, how I define it more as an intelligence, as an energy. And I preface that not to tick folk off and, and that's why I should have put God in quotations when I wrote the book. But for me, God-centered thinking, call it what you will, God consciousness, the universe, the multiverse, the force, it doesn't matter what you call it. But for me, God-centered thinking is to tap in to the all that is. And the only way I can do that is to be still. Mm-hmm. Because I was taught, and I'm a professional clergy person, I'm an ordained clergy person, I was taught that this God was out there. And everything that happened was out there. And even when I read, other faith traditions, or especially the Christian tradition, even Jesus says that this kingdom is within you. Mm-hmm. And so it's like a wave believing that it's separate from the ocean. If you put it in a glass, that's absurd. So for me,
I agree.
Consciousness, yeah. Just because, you put if I go to the beach and put some water in the glass and bring it back to my hotel room, wouldn't it be absurd if the water said, well, just because I'm in the glass, I'm different? No, you came from your source. You're just in this vehicle, this tumbler, whatever I put it in. So for me, God-centered thinking is taking the time, and there are many, I call them spiritual technologies, whether it's meditation, prayer, contemplation, being in nature, being still, being quiet. You can remember that you're part of that source. And if you can slow down enough to tap into that, you get all the power and the majesty and all the wisdom and the love from that source. And then you can take it out into the world. That's God consciousness, the belief in not being separated.
Yes.
The illusion. That's the best way.
Well, that is an illusion. I agree with that.
Once you get past that separation, because the universe doesn't see separation. It just reflects back to you who and what you really are.
That's deep and very true.
I try to live that way. It's not always fun because, I'm not a victim now. A lot of things I bring to myself. I have a little meme I got off of social media. I saved it. It's just a sentence. It says, well, 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 if it isn't the consequences of my actions.
We should all have that.
Yeah, I got it off of Facebook, and how you save good stuff for later.
Yes.
And it's well, 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 if it isn't the consequences of my actions. And once you can look at life that way, and I'm not saying that everything that happens to you, it's your fault, as it were, because I don't look into things that sometimes they're just lessons, but we have more power than we really think we are. I think we are more godlike when we are creative, whether that's writing or healing or serving. Whenever we're creating, that's when we're most godlike. And our religions have taught us that we are worms, that we are not worthy,
yes,
that we are not loved. And you have to unlearn that. You have to unlearn, because
and it is a process.
And it is done.
It is a process you have to initiate to get through.
Well, that's the good word. So that means that we're really more powerful than we think we are. That means if we can visualize stuff, you want a better world, you want more love in the world, be more loving. You want more kindness in the world, be more kind. Because you're like a magnet, and you draw to you what you are. Now, that doesn't mean that the other 9 billion people on the planet are going to be doing that, but that's not your concern.
Exactly.
The concern is, what are you doing?
Well, because I don't want to be responsible for the other 9 billion people. That's not my job. My job is to be the best Kat Hobson I can be.
And by doing that, you are helping the other 9 billion people. So it's not like a callous thing, because we're all connected, but I can't control the behavior. I can barely control mine. I can't control the behavior of other people, but I am responsible for how I respond. Not react, but how I respond.
Big difference
to
there.
The situations life gives to me. And so far, it works. It's not always, sometimes it's painful, but it's been a good way for me to navigate my life. And the other thing was to give up at least trying to be right. Once I gave up having to be right, I guess I get what the Christians call the peace that passes all understanding. It was, I didn't have to go to attend every fight I was invited to, every argument I was invited to. And I just had to say, you know what, you may be right. Sometimes I said that when I didn't believe it, but I just didn't want to come, giving that up brought me peace.
Yes, that will do it. And, something that I liked when this conversation thread first started was the being alone. I found during this whole quarantine scenario that I am pretty good solo. I had not really believed it. And I didn't necessarily get all of my to-dos checked off. I was terrible at that because I kind of lost the rhythm, the striving rhythm.
Yes.
But I was exposed to so much more because I had time and there were no planes in my sky and there were no things really happening. Trains were not in the distance and such as that. I could look up and see a perfectly clear sky. I've never seen that.
Yeah.
I could see people, at the grocer. My husband did most of the grocery shopping, but, and he often looked like the man from Mars when he went in, but he was taking care and nurturing and protecting. And so I was trying to do that from home for him. But the whole experience was being still. I mean, in Isaiah, you're given directions, right? Be still and know I am God.
Yes, be still and know that I am God. Yes. Because there's a difference between solitude and loneliness.
Yes.
And solitude is something that we can seek out. And any genuine spiritual path encourages that. Loneliness and we can all go there and on an existential level. We're never alone on a deep level, but we can have that. And I get it. But again, being the two different types, I seek out my aloneness.
Yes.
Which is solitude. I need it. I need to read. I need to be quiet, and especially because my life is so public. My occupation, my calling is so public, and just finding that balance. I mean, I can go too far. I could just sit in here and put my pajamas on and never come out. I'm in my shell, in my bubble. So, finding a balance, but it took a virus to show us that.
It did.
Or really to get in touch with it and see it in new ways.
Well, I'm going to interrupt you because we're at our first break, Michael.
Boy, I tell you.
This is flying.
Well, I like to run my mouth, so that time went very quickly.
Well, I like listening to you do that. I think you're just nothing but great information. So we will be right back. Y'all come back too.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... Nope. That'll do. Hello. I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk only on Paranormal Experience Radio. Broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama. Since 1948, Fate Magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting. You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
This is Jason Bland, host of Midwest Paranormal Presents Paranormal Soup, where we stream live as a webcast every Sunday night, 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. Eastern, with guests who will blow your mind. Live ghost box sessions where you can call into the show to see if the spirits will talk to you, and the world wide web of weird with the latest in paranormal news and evidence. We're bringing the weird every Sunday night, 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. Eastern on our Facebook page and YouTube channel. Don't forget to follow and subscribe.
Thank you for listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 23 minutes after the hour. Welcome back to Fate Mag Radio, and I am so excited that you are here. I think that this is one of my favorite conversations that I've had in some time. I love everything. I always do. Y'all know that. But, Michael, I am enjoying our conversation because, you know, you have a very, before we move on from this, you have a very different outlook on the social, personal side of the pandemic because of being a certified hospital chaplain. So you have access to go into places when others couldn't, I'm assuming.
Yes.
So
that's true.
Were you one of those people that were able to be with the dying when no one else could, or was that not part of what you did? How did that affect you?
Okay. Those are a couple different questions. Okay. I've been a chaplain since, a board certified chaplain since the 90s. And no, there wasn't, and I worked on served on an age unit, and I served on an oncology unit. And then when I moved down south from living in New York, I served as an emergency room chaplain. Obviously, you know, the experiences I've had really changed me in many, many ways, you know, and with COVID though, I couldn't get in. There were a lot of chaplains, ministers could not get in. They were just not, that's what I was alluding to at the beginning before, it may have been before we even got on the air, that we couldn't get in because of the virus. And then right before Delta, they were letting us in.
Okay.
And now I could probably get in, and I may have to for some people, but it changed me. I love being a chaplain. I still do. When I get a chance to do that, now I serve a parish. But, I mean, you're right there. And ministry is where life and death meet. I saw some miraculous things happen. I saw some very sad things happen. And it can't but change you. But it really can break down those barriers. Again, this illusion of separation. When you see how people suffer, when you see that people want basically the same thing that you want. If you have kids, you want good education for your kids. You want a good life. You want a secure job. You want health care. You want the basics so that you have some dignity.
Yes.
And that's crucial. And so, at least to me, and so the chaplaincy was a reward. Now, I spent a lot of times in hospitals as a kid because I had asthma very, very badly. I still have it now, but not as bad. I mean, it's pretty well controlled. I mean, I swim a mile 3-4 times a week, and part of that is to help my lungs.
Mm-hmm.
But so I heard a lot of doctors looked out for me, a lot of scary times. So I'm at home in a hospital, whereas a lot of other clergy aren't. And so I just try to give back and play it forward. But it's when you're on your back and you're afraid and you got tubes and IVs and you're just, a good chaplain is a price above rubies. Anybody, but a good chaplain
yes.
Who can be there really is a game changer.
I could see that. We have, as we move on, we have a very interesting question that has come up in our chat room.
Sure.
And it's just an opinion question for you.
Sure.
But Robert said that when he worked for AM/FM radio channel, he encountered 2 so-called men in black. I just did air quotes. Oh my goodness. But men in black, one of them asked, "What happens when you shoot an angel?" What a strange question. Do you have any thoughts about that?
It's a bizarre.
It is bizarre. It's a strange question.
No, I don't have any. I don't know what to say to that. I don't want to find out.
No.
I would assume nothing because these beings are probably they're not human in the sense that we
they're
are.
supernatural beings.
Yeah. It just seems like not unless they were trying to be funny or, I don't even, I can't even, I have no words for that.
Well, I would guess that you would have to watch out for the ricochet. Would be my take on that.
Who knows? Who knows? It's a bizarre question, but I mean, men in black are bizarre people from what the literature and the data tells us. So it's kind of par for the course, yeah.
But that's a very odd question.
Yeah.
Now, as you were coming through your education, you have your master's in divinity.
Yes.
That you got at a fantastic seminary.
Yes, Union, yes.
And you spent so much time in New York City, and you were having encounters while you were in New York, weren't you?
Yes, that's where they began for me as an adult. Yeah.
Did you have them as a child?
Well, that's why I hesitated. I looking back, who's the Danish Christian philosopher Kierkegaard said, life is lived forward, but it's only understood backwards. Looking back, I think I did. I used to lie in my room and I would see these orbs. I didn't know they were orbs then. And they would just be floating around me. They could have been entities that were not in bodies. They were in circles. And they would be different colors, blue, green, like the colors of chakras, really. And they looked like donuts. And they would fly, and I'd just be looking at them, mesmerized. And I could see kind of like the three-dimensionality of space in my room. I'm just looking at them, And I used to wake up a lot with a lot of nosebleeds. Now, I thought that at that time my ears were bleeding. It was very true, I was like, where's this blood coming from? And I never had really nosebleeds. Even here, where I don't have, I need a humidifier, where the air is dry. I could see it coming from that, but I don't think it was from that. But those are just things looking back. And I could always see the colors around people, which I still do. Then I didn't know you called them auras, but I thought everybody did. And as a kid, and especially if your skin was dark or you were tanned, if I stared at you long enough, I started to see the skeletal system underneath your skin. But again, I thought everybody had that. So on December 28, 1989, when I had my first encounter that I recall as an adult, coming back from Mexico, was when I first saw a being that I would call a star person, had the huge head, was chalk colored, not gray necessarily. And there are different species of gray. So some of them were white, off-white, gray, grayish white. That's when my journey began there, coming back from Mexico, and seeing that being at the foot of my bed. My girlfriend at the time, when I wrote this last book, Initiation, which came out in August, we kind of relived it because I talk about it in the book. And she said, I remember that night. She said, I've never seen you so scared. And she said, I remember seeing these kind of shadowy beings in the room. She said, but for some reason, I just felt like I needed to go to sleep, because she never woke up.
Oh, wow.
Until after it was over. Yeah. I don't want to. Do I have time to tell the story? I don't want to.
You do. You've got about 10 minutes.
Okay. Okay. So coming back from, and your listeners are probably have heard this ad nauseum if they heard me on other shows, so bear with me. Coming back from Chichen Itza and Tulum on the Yucatan, we were in Mexico for vacation. We decided to take a day trip on a bus to the Yucatan. We saw the Mayan pyramids at Chichen Itza and Tulum. Breathtaking, fascinating. Just what this civilization, where are they getting this information about astronomy, astrology? And so we came back home and got back to JFK, but I was invited to a party that a friend of mine gave, and my girlfriend decided, she said, I'm tired, I'm cold, you go. And it was in Hell's Kitchen, near Times Square. And so I went, and I wanted to show off my tan, and it was 90 degrees, 85 degrees. I wanted to glow because people in New York were freezing their tails off. And so I went to see my friend, and, no alcoholic beverages, no adult beverages were served, tons of deviled eggs, which I'm a junkie. I
share that addiction.
Yes, I need a support group for that. But anyway, and we talked, and they gloated and oohed and ahhed, oh, how was it? And da-da-da. And I said, okay, time for me to go home. And I caught the subway back home. And even to this day, I don't know whether I had to go to the bathroom or did I feel a presence. And I sleep on my stomach, and Sandy was asleep. And when I turned around, I don't know why, there was a being at the foot of my bed who was about 4 feet tall, tops, if that. Huge head, had on a jumpsuit type garment, that one piece that looked like Reynolds wrap. But when I described it to a friend, they said, was it kind of like one of those suits they wear in NASCAR? I said, that's a good image, but it was all aluminum, it looked like foil. And very pale. Around this individual was a cobalt blue light, and around that was this huge, it was like lit up like Times Square in the bedroom.
So and, was the light like an auric light, or was it?
Yeah, it looked like an aura, but it was, yeah, it did, but it was huge. because it was a deep blue, and then on top of that was a bright white. It was like my room was lit up, like someone had turned all these light bulbs on. And very skinny. And I'm going to say he, it could have been a she, but he looked at me and I looked at him, and I thought I was going to have a cardiac arrest. I pulled the covers up over my head and got into the fetal position. And I heard this sound like the wind, whoosh, like the wind was blowing, and the temperature changed in the room, and I felt like I was outside. And my mind was trying to grapple with all this stimulation. And when I pulled the covers down, no one was there. Huh. And it was, I don't even have any words. I was just very, very afraid. And I told my girlfriend about it. And she's a very understanding person. She's a deeply spiritual person. And so she believed me. She did not go, what are you, a nut? She didn't take it there. And so what had happened was every full and new moon, so we're talking twice a month for about 8-9 months, could have been even a year, I was getting visited. And they were visiting me when she wasn't there. She worked at night usually. Right. And they would paralyze me. And I wound up seeing different races. I've seen about 3 or 4 different races. And we can talk about that later. But, and they would show me stuff, like they showed me a past life where I was a Catholic monk. They showed me a future event that had happened about me being, and I was in a church speaking, and I had on a lovely 3-piece suit that I actually had in my wardrobe at the time. And then that happened, but it was starting to change me. It was starting to change my outlook about religion and spirituality and Christianity and all this stuff. And it was keeping me up at night, and I had to go to a therapist. And
well, I'm going to interrupt you with a question here, if that's okay. But when you say that it was affecting your spirituality, your faith,
yeah,
in what way? Were you losing it?
I wasn't losing faith. I was losing the dogma that I was taught about the teachings of, I'm a man of the West. I was trained in the West. If I was in the East, it would probably be Lao Tzu or the Dalai Lama or Buddha or whatever. But, that narrative, the story of Yeshua, is still pivotal to me now. But I kind of started researching and studying, and, I realized that I was sold a bill of goods, that the Christianity that I was practicing was us versus them. It was, I'm saved, you're not. And I was trying to reconcile those teachings that I was reading about and the religion that I was being told about. And I'm looking at Jesus and the Samaritan and a person of a different race, and how this person, the parable about how this person was actually doing more of the will than the people who were on the road. And I'm starting to look at these stories, and I'm like, I don't see this. I started seeing Jesus as the Jewish person that he was, but he was saying, to my mind, and of course I was studying this now, I'm in seminary, he was saying, I got it, I got this. Yes, we respect Moses, we respect the teachings of the prophets, but I'm bringing you another commandment. I'm telling you, no, now you got to bring your A game now.
Yeah.
Now you got to love your enemies. You got to at least try. That means that you got to love the Roman. That means you have to love the Pharisee and Sadducee. He brought the love ethic in.
Yeah.
And
see, there's great danger in opening your mind sometimes. It feels like initially, but it's really not. It's what cures ills.
Well, I mean, for everybody, it doesn't do that. For you and me, it does. For other people, it scares them to death. Because the same people who were crying Hosanna on Palm Sunday were saying, give us Barabbas on Friday.
Yes.
And so, it's a dangerous thing, a little knowledge. So the Christianity that I was studying, now I went to, who I was raised with, I went to a very progressive seminary. I went to Union Theological in New York, one of the top seminaries in the country.
Yes.
And I have to give them props because when I went to them with this UFO master's thesis, they could have said, young man, you have got to be kidding. You're not going to graduate from here with that tripe. Instead, they embraced it. And they said, if you can make an argument for it in a scholarly way, you go for it. So I owe them much in the way of opening this up. But at that time, I was still, I was seeing the Greys, I was seeing reptilians, I was seeing Arcturians, I was seeing praying mantis people. I had a blood clot healed in 2013. I had a terrible blood clot. I know we're probably going to have to take another break soon, and we can go into that. But it didn't change my faith. I still have faith in the goodness of people and that there is an intelligence greater than me. But I don't have that separation that just because my path is this and you are Muslim or you are pagan or you are what have you, that somehow that's wrong. I don't have that. And I don't believe Jesus really had that either, which is what got him in trouble.
Well, that is what got him in trouble, but that's the mindset that he was trying to teach. And we are going to have to go to a break in just a moment, but I love that we are able to speak so freely about this because there were times when we wouldn't have been. And
well,
it just has...
we'd be burned at the stake for talking about this.
Yes. So we will be back, and I hope that y'all all come back too because this conversation is fascinating. And Michael, I am having a blast with you. Thank you. We'll be right back. We are having just a little bit of technical difficulty. If y'all can just bear with me, please. My mouse has taken on a mind of its own. So we'll be right back.
You're listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... Nope. That'll do. Hello. I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experienced Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Welcome back to Fate Mag Radio. I am so glad you're here with my guest, Michael Carter, and we are having a fantastic conversation. And every so often when we do this level of show, things happen. And Michael, you were saying that sometimes you feel like there are things or entities that don't want you to have that conversation.
Yeah, well, I think these entities are very human. I've had it happen. Sometimes it's very frustrating, but soon as I'm talking about a certain topic or something like that, there'll be a glitch. Skype will cut off, or Zoom, or and we have to go back. And I just kind of chuckle at it because after once, maybe it happens. If it happens more than twice, it's not coincidence. Well, to my mind.
Well, I have actually, because I do all types of anomalous topics, and I have more trouble with ufology shows than I do with any other type of paranormal or anomalous topic. It's just so funny because it's quite obvious.
Yeah. No, I'm with you, and we just muddle through.
We do.
But it's like, come on, guys, is this really necessary? Just let us talk. We're not going to take over. We're just talking about our experiences and our worldview.
Well, I would like it if you would continue talking about your experiences because you had mentioned the blood clot.
Oh, yes.
That's interesting.
It was very interesting. Oh, God. Back in July, okay, and I probably got 10 minutes to do this, so I'm going to make it, I'm going to try to be as succinct as I can. In July 4th, 2013, okay, so before that, my life was a country western song. My life was a blues song. I was getting a divorce. My biological dad was dying of pancreatic cancer, and I was about to lose my job at a hospital here. And it happened all at once. And I do not have a history of blood clots. And so my dad had died in January of 2013, and I was getting ready to lose my job because new management was coming into the hospital. And all of a sudden, I had a blood clot. I did not know it was a blood clot. I thought I pulled a muscle or something. I'm thin. My legs are thin, like ostrich legs. And my right leg had swelled up to the size of like LeBron James. I wish my legs were that built. But it was very painful. Yes, and I didn't know. I mean, if I put a piece of paper on my leg, it was excruciating. So I talked to my ex-wife, who happened to be the woman who I had the first, came back from Mexico with. We've been friends all this time. And she said, Michael, you're not going to listen to me. You didn't listen to me when we were married. She said, but you're not supposed to have that kind of pain for 3 days. You need to see a doctor. And I said, oh, okay, we'll see. But when we hung up, I said, I need to do this. So I called my primary. He said, did you drive here? Do you have a ride? I said, I drove here. He said, you need to turn around and you need to go get an, a scan.
Mm-hmm. The ultrasound.
And, yes. Thank you. And he said, because if that's a clot and if it bursts, I said, is it going to ruin my day? He said, of course it will. So you go. And I was a little nervous, but I knew I wasn't going to die from it. I just knew there'll be other ways for me to go, but this wasn't going to do it. But it was quite scary. Yes, and when I went there, they saw it was from my right ankle up to the groin area. So they gave me, I was injecting myself with this drug called enoxaparin in my stomach. And it was getting black and blue because I had to do it, I think, once or twice a day to dissolve the clot. Right. Later on, I was on Coumadin or Wayfaring. But to make a long story short, on July 13th, July 4th, 2013, there was my daughter and my ex, they love fireworks. And I didn't like them because, we sit out there, you got to get there early to find parking. You sit out there at 7, it doesn't get dark till 9:30, so you're out there 2 hours. People are so close, it's hot, and the fireworks are only 30 minutes. So I'm like, do I really need to do this? I'm trying to be a good dad. I've been doing this for years. And so it was a terrible, terrible thunderstorm. I loved it because they canceled it. And, I said, thank you, Jesus, they can't. And so I had a lot of friends who were in Southeast Asia in the war, in Vietnam. And we would talk about some of their experiences. Not a lot of them would talk about it, but some of them trusted me. It was two groups. Some would say nothing about it, right. And some couldn't stop talking about it. So, and they entrusted me with a lot of stories and what have you. And it was they talked about the artillery, incoming, outgoing. You slept in your foxhole. It could be raining. And sometimes you slept through some artillery or mortar rounds because you were just tired and you were in your base camp, yada, yada. It was so much thunder that night that I said to myself, this must be what my friends went through in Vietnam. I mean, it sounded like artillery. And the rain was coming down, and it was 9:50 p.m. And again, I was on my stomach in this little apartment here because I live alone. And there's a little room for my daughter when she stays here with me, when she's not with her mom. Right. And so I felt a presence, and those who've had the experience, it's eerie because the air gets real still. I can't explain it. There's a shift in the energy in the room. Anyway, I turned around, and there was this blonde, blue-eyed brother with a robe, with a cowl, like those robes that monks wore back
Absolutely.
And this brother was ripped. You could see the muscles through through the robe. And he was almost as tall as my ceiling, which had to be, 8-9 feet. And I was like, oh my God. And he had like a page boy haircut. He had the hoodie, not a hoodie, the cowl.
The cowl.
Yeah. And he stuck his hand out towards me, and this green, like a bright apple green light hit me in my stomach because I had sat up. Believe me, he got my attention because I'm like, how'd you get in? And I didn't feel anything. And then, my heart was racing as it always does, and I'm pumped up, and he dissolved. His molecules just separated.
Oh, wicked.
And like a Star Trek thing. And the first person I called, I don't know if you heard of him. His name is Preston Dennett.
Yes.
I called Preston because Preston wrote a book. And I looked at my leg, and my leg, the swelling had gone away. It was normal. I called Preston. Preston was out because it was 10 of 10 here, it was 10 of 7 there. He's in California, so he was probably out and about. And I couldn't sleep that night because I was so wound up, which I usually am, because their energy, they vibrated such a different frequency. And so that morning, I did wind up calling Preston. I told him the story. He has 2 books out on healings, so he put me in the book, on his second book on healings. I went to see my daughter and my second ex, who we're good friends as well. This is the mother of our child. And they both said almost at the same time, oh my God, they healed your blood clot.
Yes.
And it was uncanny. And what was difficult was I had to go explain it to the doctors, because when I went, you have to go like every 10 days, and they stick you with that little, like you got diabetes or something in your finger, and they draw them up and yada, yada. And they were like, the doctor was like, it was 2 of them, but the second one came in later, but it was only really one at the beginning, and they wouldn't let it go. They were like, well, what happened? How come you were just here? And I was trying to weave and bob, and I wasn't going to tell them what happened. They'd lock me up. And so finally, after about 10, 12 minutes, I said, look, I don't know what happened. You don't know what happened. It can't be explained. I said, but aren't you happy for me? Can you be happy for me, please? And they said, they put them back on their heels a bit because I didn't know what was I going to tell them. They said, of course we're happy for you, Mr. Carter. Of course. We just can't explain this. You were just here 10 days ago. Your leg was still swollen. The medication doesn't work that fast. Anyway, I got over it. I got through it. I got them to take me off of the Coumadin because I still have side effects from it.
Right.
But they healed my blood clot. They healed it. So I say, well, I must not be finished yet. If you did this for me, then that means I still got to finish the mission you sent me to do.
Indeed.
And so that's how I look at it. But they helped me dodge a bullet with that because that was a big clot. That was huge.
We've experienced that with my husband.
Yes.
And it was very frightening because he came home from a vacation by himself because he had to go back to work. And then I was still on vacation, and he called and said, well, that tightness in my leg, that was a blood clot. So yeah. I'm in the hospital and I'm starting on medicine. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
So I made it home in record time, literally. And he got a second one that was the full leg. I think the first one was not full leg. But those are so serious. I am very surprised that your doctors let you off with just saying, can't you be happy for me?
Yeah.
Because that was a record time healing with a great big one like that. That's amazing and wonderful.
Yeah. Well, what can they say? I do energy work, Reiki and energy work. And, I've seen things happen, but I just could not. I mean, what more could I tell them? They would have locked me up if I had said that, and I definitely didn't need that. So I had to think, what can I say to them? And they let it go. They took me off of the Coumadin, as I said, and I still, my hands get hot now, but they only get hot when I'm doing the energy work. Mm-hmm. But they used to be hot all the time. People would say, my God, your hands are so warm. But now I think because of the circulation or the lack thereof. And they told me that it would, it would go away, this coldness, but it never did. It never did.
That's fascinating, Michael.
Well, that's a good word.
Well,
that's, it's been, that's a good way to put it.
And such a blessing.
I think so. I really do. And so, I've seen things, and now you want to talk about being grateful. So these are some of the things that I've gone through, and they affect my life. They affect the way I look at life, and they did change my theology in a way that's been very profound. And so when I look at biblical stories, I look at them now as, if you put the word ET or star person or star nation or extraterrestrial, I don't like the word alien, but if you put any of those words wherever you see angel in the Bible makes more sense.
It does. And that's what we're going to talk about when we get back from this break.
Okay.
So for everyone listening, this is our top of the hour break, and I am ever hopeful that we are going to have good news and every time I run one of these. So we're pushing for that. We will be back, and I hope that you come back too, because we have another full hour with Michael. We'll see you on the flip side.
Live from NPR News, I'm Dale Willman. Former Senate Majority Leader Bob Dole died this morning. He was 98 years old. As NPR's Matthew Schwartz reports, Dole is being remembered as the consummate statesman and an example of the best of American politics.
Bob Dole was a war hero, a congressman, and eventually a U.S. senator, representing his home state of Kansas for 35 years. But perhaps more impressively, Dole was a politician respected across the political spectrum. President Biden, who served with Dole in the Senate, called him an American statesman like few in our history. Barack Obama said Dole's demeanor harkened back to a day when people put country over party. George W. Bush said Dole represented the finest of American values. And Bill Clinton, who defeated Dole to win re-election in 1996, praised him for dedicating his entire life to serving the American people. After all he gave in the war, Clinton said, he didn't have to give more, but he did. Matthew Schwartz, NPR News, Washington.
At least 15 states have reported cases of the Omicron variant, including Georgia, which announced it's detected its first case within the state's borders. The variant was found in a person who recently returned from South Africa. Susanna Capelouto from member station WABE has more.
Health officials say the person was tested after developing mild symptoms and sequencing confirmed the Omicron variant. The person is isolating at home and contact tracing is underway. It's Georgia's first confirmed in-state case. On Friday, a fully vaccinated Georgia resident was diagnosed in New Jersey. That person had spent 2 days in Georgia and also visited South Africa. Officials here are urging vaccinations as a way to prevent variants like Omicron from forming. Only 51% of Georgians are fully vaccinated. Scientists are still studying the variant to see how easily it spreads and whether current vaccines are effective. For NPR News, I'm Susanna Capelouto in Atlanta.
Officials say at least 10 people on board a Norwegian cruise line ship approaching New Orleans have tested positive for COVID-19. That Norwegian breakaway left New Orleans on November 28th and traveled to Belize, Honduras, and Mexico. More than 3,200 people are on board. A peaceful march in Belgium turned into a standoff when about 100 people began throwing trash and other objects at police. Thousands of people in Brussels had come to protest new COVID restrictions, but most of them left before the clash began. The latest restrictions mark the third week in a row that the government has clamped down as a surge in COVID cases has caused problems for the country's healthcare system. Germany's incoming transport minister is advising people not to travel during the Christmas holiday. That country is trying to slow a wave of coronavirus infections. Federal and state leaders announced tough new restrictions on Thursday that mostly target unvaccinated people. They prevent them from entering non-essential stores, restaurants, and other gathering spots. And the country's parliament is considering a general vaccine mandate. You're listening to NPR News. In Israel, 2 police officers have been brought in for questioning following the shooting death of a Palestinian. The Palestinian had stabbed an Israeli man outside Jerusalem's Old City. A video taken by a bystander appears to show an officer shooting the attacker while he was already lying on the ground. The incident prompted calls for an investigation. French far-right presidential candidate Eric Zemmour held his first presidential rally today after officially declaring his candidacy last week. Zemmour is a well-known columnist and far-right TV pundit who is new to the political scene but wildly popular. NPR's Eleanor Beardsley reports.
About 15,000 supporters cheered Eric Zemmour at his rally outside of Paris Sunday. Zemmour told them together they would restore the grandeur of France. He has christened his movement Reconquest. The 63-year-old intellectual and TV polemicist wants to stop mass immigration. He also said he wants to pull France out of NATO's Central Command. Zemmour has been whipping up his fans for weeks in signings for his new book. Sunday was his first official campaign appearance ahead of next April's presidential election. Zemmour is taking voters away from traditional far-right leader Marine Le Pen, who many here say has drifted too far left. Eleanor Beardsley, NPR News, Paris.
Rescuers in Indonesia are searching for at least 9 people who were missing following yesterday's eruption of Mount Semera on the island of Java. 14 people were killed by searing gas and ash. Villages and nearby towns are covered with ash, and several hamlets were buried under tons of mud. I'm Dale Willman, NPR News.
Support for this NPR podcast and the following message come from Betterment, a full-service 401k provider. Help attract and retain talent by helping your employees save for retirement and more. No business is too small to get started. Learn more at betterment.com/NPR.
Welcome back to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 5 minutes after the hour. Welcome back for the second hour of Fate Mag Radio, the online voice of Fate Magazine. I am so glad that you are listening, and I'm telling you, if you are listening through the fatemag.com webpage, then you are already having the opportunity to see some of the great things that we have to offer. We've got trading cards, we've got t-shirts, we've got new subscriptions, we have uncirculated issues if you need to fill your collection, and if your subscription has run out, well, we can take care of that too. All of that's available right there on fatemag.com. If you're going to the Pura Unity Conference in Las Vegas this weekend, I am sorry, I will not be there because I have a granddaughter coming. So I am the designated grandma for my grandson. So I am so excited about that. But you can find our Ghost Talk Radio with 187 PI representing WBHM Digital Broadcasting. And they will be having some magazines and information for you about schedules. And if you have any guests that you would like to hear, let me know. We will make it happen. Now, this week's guest is a special treat, definitely. And Dr. Reverend Michael Carter, I am so glad that you're here. Although you do have your Doctor of Divinity. Master of Divinity.
I have my MDiv.
Yes.
My MDiv, yes. I have a
yes,
master.
my bad. And I am just really excited that you are here. I've enjoyed every minute of our conversation thus far. And we have a couple of questions in chat before we move on. Is that okay?
Yes.
Well, let's see. Yes. These are from Robert, and these are great questions. So the first one is, has Reverend Carter experienced any time anomalies or reality glitches?
It's a good question. Thank you, Robert. Not to my knowledge. I remember the first time when I told you about coming back from Mexico and having that individual there. Someone said to me, did you check the time? And I didn't know anything about that. It didn't even occur to me. I will tell you something that did happen, and I can't go into too much more depth. I mean, in-depthness about it because my daughter was involved, but and she's 15. And anyway, last year, she stays with me. Her mom and I split custody when we divorced, and so she stays with me one night during the week and every other weekend. And one morning, she got up and she said to me, "Daddy, where were you last night?" And I said, "Well, what do you mean, baby?" She said, "I went to go to the bathroom at about 3 o'clock, and her bedroom's right next to mine." And she said, "I looked in the room and you were gone." And I said, "That didn't happen last night." She said, "Yeah." She said, "I walked around the apartment. You were not here." And she said, your covers were pulled back really neatly, and the full moon was shining in. It was like a light all in the apartment. I walked in the living room. There was a bright light from the moon. And I said, "Baby, there was no full moon last night." And she said, "Oh." She said, "Did your friends come?" I said, "I don't know. I wouldn't leave you. I would not leave you here in the middle of the night." And that was an anomaly to me because I had no idea that I was even gone.
That is so bizarre.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. But that's the only thing that I would count as an anomaly. Usually when I see them, it's in real time. I mean, I've meditated and seen them, like after the blood clot was healed, I meditated to say thank you. And they showed up in my third eye. And I guess that was a way of saying, "We hear you." But other than that, it's been real time where they've touched me. They kind of reached out and, they're in my room. And it is what time it is.
Right.
Even with the blood clot, you know what I mean? So I hope that answers it, Robert.
Well, he has another question too.
Uh-huh.
And that is, are some current works of God mistaken for extraterrestrial activity? I would guess, or the other way too.
Well, it depends whether you want to say God. And if you're talking about separation, suppose God wanted the extraterrestrials to do something. How do you know the difference? You just know that it happens. So I don't know the answer to that question. Things happen. It's like when I have some people, sometimes they won't go to the doctor. Oh, Jesus will heal it. Jesus will do this. And sometimes Jesus wants you to go to the doctor. So the doctor Jesus may be working through the doctor. Buddha may be working through the doctor. So yes. I don't really know how to answer that.
Well, that's interesting. There's a story here about a guy that was trapped in a flood, and a boat came by and he was like, oh, I'm okay. God will help me.
Yes.
And then, you've got the helicopter that comes by and he's like, no, I'm good. God will help me. And so then he drowns. He gets to God and he says, why didn't you help me? He said, I sent you a boat and a helicopter. What were you waiting on?
Excellent. Excellent analogy.
It's not always a miracle. Like a strange miracle. It's always a miracle, but it's not an anomalous miracle.
Well, but the deeper question, I think, behind Robert's question is this, to me. When we pick up any scripture, whether it's the Quran or, and we have these acts here, to our ancestors, these beings were gods.
Yes.
Because of the technology.
I agree.
And so that kind of technology is indistinguishable from magic. So, there is that, it's the elephant on the table. Were these beings the gods? Is there a God? And is that God, did we create that God in our image instead of the other way around? I mean, these are the questions. But your example, Kat, was excellent. But how do you distinguish? God can work through extraterrestrials, if you want to use that word.
God can work through
I try
anything.
not to. Yeah, God can. Or it may not be. It may be just the extraterrestrial.
Well,
okay.
Exactly. But it's still going to be happening.
Yeah.
And we give the name to what we want it to be, right?
Well, and that's a pro and a con.
Yes.
Because if the only tool I have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
Good analogy. Well, but you're of the opinion, and I've got to say, having read your work along with other research that I've done over the years, that because these beings were coming from the heavens, because they had craft that were intimidating, for lack of better words, they considered these beings gods.
That's where I'm coming from. It took me a while to get there, but I wasn't the only one who talked about that. My good friend and colleague Barry Downing, retired Presbyterian minister back in 1968, wrote a book called The Bible and Flying Saucers. Morris K. Jessup, who died under mysterious circumstances, did as well. Reverend Virginia Brasington from this part of the country. So we got some female energy there. She wrote a book about it. So, the only difference between myself and these individuals is that I'm an experiencer, and I don't think they are. And if they were, they never mentioned it. But it makes you look at the Bible, and at least for me, in a different way. My good friend Barry says, I want my God to be warm and fuzzy. Well, in some ways, but there is that love ethic. But it was hard for me when I looked at Yahweh and his behavior, having temper tantrums and killing firstborn and those types of things. I said, is this a God that I can really, as the young people say, could I be down with this God? And I found as I got older, I couldn't.
Right.
Dashing babies' heads against the stones and these types of things. And so I started to just ask the question, is this a God or is this a humanoid? Gods don't have to be jealous. Gods don't have to be jealous. Gods don't have to be concerned if you're circumcised or not. Very controlling God, Yahweh, has temper tantrums. And so I started looking, and I started, studying process theologians who say that God matures. God is in the process. God matures as we do. And, as you go through the Old Testament, if it is Yahweh, it could be other folks, he gets mellower and mellower. Well, that's fine. We could also argue that maybe the God that Jesus is talking about is very different from the God in the Old Testament. So it was all these questions and what have you. And with those type of things, one thing about seminary is if it's a good seminary, it makes you uncomfortable. It makes you doubt because you have to ask those questions. And I came down on the side of that Yahweh is an astronaut. This is not to say that there is no God. And if I didn't believe it was a God, I would say I don't believe there's a God. But I do think that with the stories, we are seeing our ancestors are talking about this technology. They're trying to explain it like in Ezekiel and Enoch. And, they're trying to explain it in the language and the vernacular of their day. Flying chariots. Nowhere in the Bible does it say that angels have wings. Now, before people get their pants in a wad, I'm not saying there's no such thing as angels. I'm just saying that angel is, the Hebrew is melech, and it means messenger, emissary.
Yes.
I think our ancestors drew wings to let us know these beings could fly. And in all cosmologies, Native American, the Star People, flying boats, the Vimanas in India, they're trying to tell us that these beings flew. And I say with the technology that they have, oh my God, it blew them out of the sky.
So to speak.
Yes.
Yes.
And so Yahweh is like, you can't marry in this tribe, and you have to be circumcised, and you have to eat meat, and Leviticus is telling you how much you should charge for slaves. This does not sound like a God to me. Slaves? No, not just because I'm a person of color this lifetime. I'm just saying, who condones that? Either you're about love or you're not.
Yes.
Either you're about unity or you're not.
And, something that strikes me as so odd is that in the New Testament, the writings are very much about love and acceptance, but there's still a lot of judgmentalism there and don't associate with this or that. And I do sometimes think that the more I broaden my mind or broaden my reading library and personal experiences, that there are a lot of different ways to take this subject. And you can't be so locked into one frame of mind, one frame of reference, that you completely annihilate everything else without even giving it a chance to ponder. And I like that your books make me think. And I think that a lot of authors that you and I have shared experience of reading in common have brought about the same type of opinions. And, when I have so much trouble with a God that would have slaves. And I know that the Egyptians enslaved the Israelites, and that's a part of history through there. But I don't think that the price of a slave would be a godly writing.
Yeah, and you must remember, the spoils of war were slaves. Yes, people raped and pillaged. I'm not trying to be apologetic for it. I'm just saying it's a different context. Slavery here in this country was based on the inferiority of another race.
Perceived.
So those are two different things. But for instance, but Yahweh is jealous. Yahweh has a bad temper. Yahweh is,
spits and kills people.
He's got some issues. I'm looking in the book of Ezekiel. This is the Hebrew translation in the Torah. Ezekiel 4. I'm going to read verses 12 through 15. Ezekiel is talking to, it could be the Lord, and the Lord could be a commander of a ship. If you notice in the Bible, sometimes the word Lord is capitalized, sometimes it isn't. So we have to be open that it may not even be talking to Yahweh. It could be the commander of the ship. He doesn't know. He just knows that there's this being in front of him. So he says to Ezekiel, they're having this exchange, and he says, eat it as a barley cake. You shall bake it on human excrement before their eyes. So, said the Lord, shall the people of Israel eat their bread unclean among the nations to which I will banish them. See, he's always threatening them. If you don't do it my way. And so then Ezekiel says, then I said, but Lord God, my person was never defiled, nor have I eaten anything that died of itself or was torn by beasts from my mouth, from my youth until now. Not has foul flesh entered my mouth. In other words, I keep kosher. He's Jewish. Right. And so the Lord answered me, see, okay, I shall allow you cow's dung instead of human excrement. Prepare your bread on that. I can't worship a God that's going to make you eat crap.
Nope, but we do have to get a break, and we'll ponder that. So, for everyone listening, I apologize for the abruptness, but we're taking our break, and we'll be right back with you.
Warning, the following message does not necessarily reflect the views of WBHM-DB or its hosts, guests, listeners, or of any functioning adult in general. In fact, Frank should probably seek professional help. Listener discretion is advised.
Hi there, Frank Lee here. I thought that I would spend a few moments telling you about the positivity from the network here. The overall message of para-unity and happiness, and how everyone here wants to get along with everyone out there, and how everything is just wonderful. Wait, Cat's not looking. Okay, I've got something to really tell you. Okay, so I'm going to tell you what's really going on. Honestly, all that being nice and positive crap was kind of hurting my soul, as dark as it is. So, what's really happening? Well, you see it all the time. Everybody and their brother out there has a paranormal team because they watched a couple of episodes of Ghost Hunters or some crap like that. So they go and they spend half their mortgage payment on tools and things that light up that they don't understand. And then the next logical step after buying matching black t-shirts and posing like 90s rappers for their Facebook page is to, of course, have their own podcast. Well, you know what? You're not going to find that crap here. What we have here at WBHM Digital Broadcasting is the best host, the best guest, bringing you real information. All of the hosts here on this network know their stuff. They are the people who have been out there doing the work, doing actual research. And no, by research, I don't mean binge watching some kind of cheesy TV show on Netflix. I mean reading books. I mean out in the field doing the legwork. And who are they interviewing on their shows? They're bringing you the people they have learned from. They're bringing you the best in the field, covering all kinds of topics from UFOs and aliens to Bigfoot to cryptozoology to ghosts to anything you can think of a bit strange and unexplained. It is here, and you're going to get the best information here. So stay tuned to WBHM Digital Broadcasting. Don't go anywhere. Speaking of going somewhere, I've got to go before my mic gets cut. We'll see you there on WBHM-DB.
Welcome back to Fate Mag Radio, the online voice of Fate Magazine. And I'm Kat Hobson, your host, with my guest, Reverend Michael Carter. And Michael, I believe that we have perhaps set some people aback with our conversation, and that's okay. It's okay to say things that will perhaps help others to open their minds or consider other things. And, we have a comment in chat that says humans continue to encounter non-human beings. Truly knowing their origins is impossible. These entities could camouflage their origins and intentions, and I think that we see that a lot more often than people are willing to say, don't you?
Not kind of sure what this person is saying. Look, a wise rabbi once said, "By their fruits, ye shall know them."
Yes.
So that's my rule of thumb. When I first started talking about UFOs in the Bible, and I wasn't talking about my experiences, I was still very much closeted about that. People would tell me about how religious they were, and they're in Bible study every Wednesday, or they're at the mosque on Friday, or at the temple, and I listen, and I respect that. But I know what you believe by how you treat me.
Exactly.
I know people who go to church and they go to their religious institutions, and some of them are the most judgmental and spiteful people I have ever known. But yet they're in church on Wednesday. They're in Bible study. When I first started talking about this stuff, first there were no clergy talking about it. So I was truly a voice crying in the wilderness. Then my more fundamentalist brothers and sisters, when they would, which I thought was progress. Yeah, they exist, but they're demons.
Yeah.
And so anything we don't understand, we demonize, whether it's people, whether it's or we don't understand it. So I just go by how you treat me. This brother who came in my room and healed my blood clot, okay. People may say, oh, well, he did that for a reason. Maybe they're using you. Well, if they are, I'll find out later. But by my fruits, people will know who I am. By their fruits, people will know who they are. And so I just kind of let it roll off my back, because fear is the great enemy. Fear and ignorance. And sometimes they go hand in hand.
Often. I agree. And, I feel that fear is a great tool in the hands of those who have goals. And I've seen a lot of people reasonably horrified by what's been going on with the health of the world in the last couple of years. And there's been so much anger and angst and reactionary behavior as a result of that fear that it's very hard to just have a conversation. Well, with anything at times, because the fear is so powerful. Do you feel that that's just a human condition?
Yeah,
weakness as a human?
Yeah. I just say it can get in the way. Courage is not having no fear. Courage is working through your fear.
Yes.
And there's scientific data that says a baby only comes into the world with two fears: fear of a loud noise and fear of falling. All the other fears are learned.
Yes.
And so a lot of people get so upset about the world, but they don't know they contribute to it. It's not like I'm a little victim over here and, oh my God, look what the world's doing. We all contribute to it. And so when the wagon comes, there's an old saying, you got to get on it. Nobody's innocent. We've all contributed to this. And so, as Einstein said, you can't solve a problem in the same mindset that created the problem. And that's what we do.
That's true.
That's what we do. That's what our consciousness does. And until we learn another way, because all the other ways don't work. And so the way you look at things, if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at begin to change. But if you cannot or choose not to, then you keep getting the same results, whether it's political, whether it's spiritual. You have to change your thinking, because thoughts are things, and you can manifest the negative. Let me tell you something. In my life, anything I've ever wanted, really, I've always gotten. The positive and the negative. Because in my fears, I can project them out. And the very thing I don't want, I create.
Yes.
Whether it's relationships, if I don't feel like I deserve to be in a healthy relationship, every relationship I'm going to go through is going to break up. But if I'm not conscious, I'm going to say it's them. What's wrong with these people out here? What's wrong with these women out here, man? I won't look at me. But as soon as I decide that this is what I want and this is what I deserve, I meet the people I need to meet. The right book comes my way. The right opportunity comes my way. We are gods in the sense of we create with our thoughts, with our words, and with our deeds. There's a lot of responsibility with that. But we are most godlike when we are creative.
I will agree with that.
But you can't get there when you've been taught that you're not worthy, that you're a worm, that you're a miserable sinner, that God doesn't like you. Any good you get comes because this person has to. And how do you overcome that? I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy.
I don't have an answer for that.
It's rhetorical.
Because you have to break that pattern.
Yeah.
Of belief.
Now, some people will say, well, that's blasphemy. Okay, then that's not blasphemy. It just means it doesn't work for you. By their fruits, ye shall know them. It's simple. It's concise. And it's the truth.
Yes.
If you are coming from love, or even if you're trying, because that's a big word in the sense of we probably have big definitions, and we may always agree on what that looks like. But if your intentions are coming from a good place, you may even make mistakes, but your intentions, I will feel that. But if you're coming from arrogance, and we know what it does to people, then there's no reconciliation because you have all the answers. And in the West, we're trained to have all the answers. We reduce the great mysteries to life to a formula. If you just pray right, if you just do this, yes. Like there's a formula. And life doesn't work that way. It rains on the just and the unjust.
That's a fact.
And I can get healed from a blood clot and someone else can die from one. I don't know. I could speculate, but I don't know. But I don't need to know. That's above my pay grade. I just need to make the best of the situation that I've had. I don't know if God called them home because of that. I don't know that. I know I was taught that. I don't know that. All I know is what's in front of me. But again, not having to be right and not having all the answers will bring you the peace that passes all understanding. And you can if you believe in a God, you can let God be God. You can let the universe be the universe. Let them figure it out. That's above. I can barely balance my checkbook. I'm getting ready to go into my third marriage, and I'm going to tell you how you need to live your life. I can barely get my life together.
And that is the true nature of humans.
That's the nature of evolved humans when you can get that. Because I'm so busy telling you what you should be doing. And most of the time, I'm not doing it myself.
That's exactly yes.
There it is.
And I have to tell you that, you're talking about the West versus the Eastern philosophies and such. And
well, not versus. I don't want to conflict them.
That's okay.
Yeah, because I don't believe in the conflict, but there are two different ways of looking at life.
Well, exactly. But when I first started learning about the Eastern religions, there were so many similarities to how I perceived my Western religion was supposed to work that I thought, well, I don't see a lot of results like that. And so that's what started my reading and my interest. And it's very interesting when you're having experiences based on just paying attention, seeing what you're seeing, experiencing the differences in the mindset. It's not just an emotional thing, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. But by the way, Kat from the Paranormal Heart podcast said that this man is very wise. I agree.
Oh, thank you.
You've taken your time and you've taught and learned.
That's the journey. To me, and I thank you, Kat, for saying. I mean, I'm looking at life as a not only as a journey, but as a school. And you go from one set of lessons to maybe a better set of lessons, but there's always a lesson. And if I look at it that way, I'm always a student. What made Plato, was it Socrates, so great? Because he said, I forget which one, but I realize that I don't know everything. Mm-hmm. And that is the beginning of wisdom. Once you know everything, or think you do, there are no other possibilities.
Exactly.
Because you know it all.
You know it all, and you've got all the answers, and people should just ask you because you know it all.
That's right. And opinions are like, what? We've all got one. And so, and that's why I like the Eastern thought. Because like I look at the Taoism symbol, mm-hmm. The circle with the light and dark. There's a little light in the light and in the dark, and there's a little dark in the light. That's the way life is. It would be easier if it was just black and white. But life is complicated, and life can get messy, and there are a lot of gray areas, and we're not taught to live in mystery. I love the Lakota from the Sioux Nation. They call the Great Spirit Wankatonkin, the Great Mystery. It's okay to say, I don't know, because any God that you can predict is not God. The finite will never comprehend the infinite. Now, maybe when we get out of these bodies, sure, but we're in these bodies, which by definition makes us limited. I know people who think they have God on speed dial. Yes. They know what God wants, and they know what God wants for you and me, and I'm like, wow, really? How did you get all that? But it's okay, because everybody's on a different path. And so there's some people more evolved and less evolved than me, obviously, whatever. And so I don't expect 9 billion people to all think the way I think. That's crazy.
It is crazy, because we all have our own individuality.
Yeah, there are 9 billion people. We could see an accident across the street, and it'd be me, you, and your husband, and we would all see it from a different angle.
I did learn that in paralegal school.
Yeah. We all see
Make sure photos and signed written statements. But, that's just part of what they teach you, is that, no two people are going to have the same experience, even if they're having the same experience.
Well, and quantum physics tells us that what we watch is affecting us just as we're affecting it. Well, what does that mean? That means we create our own realities.
Yes, we do. Entanglements are an interesting thing.
Yeah, we create our own realities. And this is what science is just getting, but what all these saints and avatars were telling us eons ago. You know, so people talk about New Age. None of this is New Age. This is ancient wisdom being rediscovered. The Native Americans knew that everything is sentient, that trees and plants, even rocks, have a life. They vibrate. They're alive. Science says, oh, that's the rock. What are you talking about? It's interesting that when Jesus goes into Jerusalem and some of these brothers are scared, and they're mostly guys anyway, and they were saying, you need to tell your disciples to turn it down a notch. And he says, what are you talking about, man? They're doing what they need to do. He said, and if the people didn't cry out, the very stones would cry out.
That is one of my favorite.
That's consciousness.
Yes, it is consciousness. And
the very stones would rejoice that I'm here. Don't get me started.
Oh, please. That is my very favorite line. It's also my favorite line out of Jesus Christ Superstar. The very rocks and stones.
Oh, yes. That's a great one. I tell you, this is my favorite line. One of them. There's so many. But and they're in the Quran, and every religion has their pearls. But when Jesus is talking and he's to his disciples, he says, if I talk to you, because to me this is like the UFO thing, if I speak to you of earthly things and you don't understand, how will you understand when I speak to you of heavenly things?
Right.
I love that.
I love that too. On that note, we're going to go ahead and take this last break because I had a topic that I wanted to discuss with you and we have not gotten there, and we may still not, but we're going to take this break to give us a chance. Yeah. So this is our final break. If you have questions, go ahead and get them in this chat room and we'll get you some answers. Thank y'all for listening. We'll see you on the flip side.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... Nope. That'll do. Hello. I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experienced Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Welcome back for the final segment here on Fate Mag Radio, the online voice of Fate Magazine, and I'm so glad you're here. And I've got to tell you, I hope that you're enjoying this show just the tiniest bit as much as I am because I'm having a ball. Michael, I've loved every second so far. And
well, we have to do it again.
I am up for that. Totally up for that.
Yeah, we have to do it again.
Yes. But do you mind if I ask you about, and I know that you don't mind, I don't know if this is going to take too much time, but you actually were back in the day an anti-racism trainer, which would be a diversity officer there.
Yeah, I still am.
You were recognized by President Clinton. And how did you develop into that role?
Well, I'm going to be honest with you. You know, this lifetime I came back as a brown man for whatever reason, and I'm in America. I'll let it go with that. Mm-hmm. But I was raised to look at people as individuals. Yes. Okay? And so it just seemed like a natural fit. And I was asked to help out. And why wouldn't I? Especially, with the history of the country. But I approach it from a spiritual point of view, which doesn't, yes, we talk about privilege and those kinds of things. But we also talk about that we're all getting screwed because we've been pitted against each other.
True. Truth.
And we believe the lies, and while we're being pitted against each other, people make money off this. You know what I mean? I mean, people.
I do know exactly what
we
you
advance
mean.
other. So, but I'm also saying too, as an experiencer, if we can't get along with each other, at least try. How are we going to grow up and be in the galactic community? Because there are people who don't. Some of them are big head and gray. Some of them look like reptilians. Some of them are blue people. If we can't get along with us, we're not ready to deal with what's out there.
True.
And I'm not talking about coming from a place of fear. So by doing this anti-racism work, diversity work, call it what you will, even though there are two different things, I'm also preparing us as, the people I encounter to not be afraid of difference, to want to understand difference, to not let difference get in the way. Exactly. Because these brothers and sisters on these ships, and some of these people don't even need ships to show up. We got to put our big boy pants on, our big girl pants on, and grow up. That we're not at the top of the food chain. There are people more advanced. And I'm not saying we got to sing Kumbaya with everybody, because I don't know. Some people have agendas. Maybe some of these groups have agendas. The ones I have met seem to be benevolent, loving, friendly. I'm not saying all of them are, but I can only go about who I met. But, otherwise we're going to destroy the planet. Yes. Pure and simple. Pure and simple.
I love that outlook. It's so absolutely accurate. And I'm very fortunate in that I was raised to support differences, to not feel that differences in appearance or physical abilities or physical handicaps or anything, made anyone less of a human. That everybody has value, has worth, and matters. And
there you go.
And I mean, I'm sorry, I'm a child. I was born in the 60s in the Deep South. And my parents still managed to teach me that because that's what they believed. And, there's no reason to ever undervalue someone just because they look differently from you, or they act differently from you, or they sound differently from you. And I'll tell you, I get a lot on the sound. I sound Southern. I get prejudged a lot. And usually it's to their detriment.
Yeah.
And that's okay. But it is still what it is. And you can't you can't take that home and hold it to heart, right? You have to let it go and just kind of say, oh, bless their hearts. And then you just go on.
Yeah, so it's painful. It's painful, though, I think.
It is. Well,
because you can't walk right and talk left. But I hear what you're saying. You work for the world you want, but you gotta be in the world as it is. I think Thoreau said, you don't want to be so heavenly minded that you're no earthly good.
Yes. And I do believe that was Thoreau. So, good job. I absolutely just think that there's so many people throughout history who have seen through such as that, and they know, and they've tried to teach from the beginning of records to now. There have been great authors, great minds that have tried to steer the ship a bit. And I think that as humans, we bow up a little bit when we feel like we're being steered. So maybe that's why it's so hard. It doesn't seem like it should be that hard.
I don't know whether it's genetic, the way they made us up, or I don't know. But I do know that we can transcend. You can't transcend everything, but you can transcend. People can change, but enough of us have to want to do it. Like Gandhi said, be the change you want to see in the world. You want more love, be more loving.
I close every show with that.
Yeah.
That's funny that you brought that, but yes.
You just have to say, what kind of person do I want to be? And how do I go about being that person? And you just have to stay on that path. And you can't get worried about what your friends are doing or not doing, because when it's time to go down the tunnel to the light, nobody else, you can't say, well, Michael look what Michael, no, I'm not talking about Michael. I'm talking about you.
All about you.
Yeah. So don't worry about, I can take care of that. Let you do you. And let the universe take care of the rest. Absolutely. Because by being the best you can be, you are making a difference. It's not going to be on Fox. It's not going to be on MSNBC. It's not going to be on CNN, but it doesn't have to be. You do you. And everything else, if I put it in, seek you first the kingdom, everything comes into place. It will fall into place.
Yes.
Buddhism talks about that, just follow the Dharma, follow your teaching. I mean, it's really simple. It's just, we make it hard.
I don't understand that either. It's really funny because about 10 years ago, I guess, I started paying attention more to my physical environment. And it was so interesting because, I apologize when I trim my shrubbery, because it's just like, ugh, that would hurt. Which sounds silly, but it's not. It's a respect for the beauty that is sitting there. And that's when I realized that, oh my goodness, I have changed so much. I sound like a fruitcake, but I don't sound like a fruitcake. I sound like someone who respects things. And truly, I do try to live by do no harm.
Yes, first do no harm. Yes, that's what physicians are supposed to.
That's
the Hippocratic oath. Yeah. It's a journey, It's a journey, and it's the best show in town.
It is.
It's the only show in town.
Yes, it is.
Because nobody gets out to the world alive. We all got to die, and so it's like, okay, what are you going to do while you're here?
Because you only get so much time. You get so much time to learn. You get so much time to experience. You get so much time to love. You get, while you're in this lifetime, it is finite. And then you go, and I believe that it continues. But
no question. No question.
Yeah.
No question. So you know, and because you just changed form, but here we are. It's what? It's the 5th of December.
It is.
We're at the end of the year, almost there, and so far we've made it, and that's the blessing. I mean, 2022 is here, man. I remember when I was a kid, this seemed so far away, and now we're living more and more in a Matrix kind of Star Trek kind of world, and with its own unique set of challenges. But it's a beautiful world, and if you got somebody that loves you and you love them, and you got a roof over your head, and you may not have robust health, but you know, if you can count your blessings, you just hold on to that. And, you know, and gratitude is part of the spiritual path. And you don't ever want to let the things you want make you lose sight of the things you already have.
Exactly. And, you know, I found myself almost doing that, right? Wanting the next toy, wanting the next experience. And I finally had to step back, and I actually had a health crisis. And I thought, what in the world am I doing with that? This is silly. I'm blessed. I've got a fantastic family. I've got good health. I'm not doing this anymore. So it's really it's a conscious decision, though. You have to make a decision.
It's a conscious decision, and it's a change in consciousness.
Yes.
And so you raise your vibration. Anytime you come from a place of gratitude, you raise the frequency.
Yes.
And people will drop out of your life because it's time. You know, when you change, you cause other people to change, and nobody likes change but a wet baby. And so, you know, people who nobody wants change, and so people that need to be there will drop away. You'll drop out of other people's lives. You know, football players don't hang out with chess players. We're not talking about bad people who's more intelligent, but you hang out with folks who vibrate on your frequency.
That's true.
But the only thing is you have to be careful because flies get drawn to the light as well.
Also true.
So you got to have some spiritual discernment. But it's all grist for the mill. And it's the greatest show in town.
It's absolutely.
Shakespeare was right, baby. It's all the world's a stage.
Well, I'll tell you, we have got 2 minutes for you to let people. I know, right? We are definitely going to have to be doing this again because I want to read and talk about your new book. But
we got to talk about the Bible and all. Woo, yes,
we got lots. We have got lots, and it's a good communication and vibe. But I want you to let people know how to find you.
Okay, and let's talk about our next part deux after this. You can find me at michaeljscarter.com. You can find me on Facebook at Michael J. Carter. My fan page is Reverend Michael J. Carter. Just find me. I will answer you. My website with GoDaddy was hacked along with millions of other people, so I had to close it down. But yeah, find me on Facebook, Reverend Michael J. Carter, or Michael J.S. Carter. I have 2 different pages. Michael J.S. Carter at Gmail. My books are on Amazon, Barnes and Nobles. Keep checking out Ancient Aliens. You'll see me popping up there every now and then. And I'm wishing everybody a merry everything and a happy always.
That's wonderful.
Yes.
And for everyone who has listened, thank you so much. If you are just coming in, that's all right. We're going to have our archive up. You're going to be able to hear us on iHeart, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, If you get your music there, you'll find us. And I just want to say, and since I have already had it stated, I'm just going to reiterate. If you don't like what you're seeing, if you don't like what you're feeling, if you don't like what you feel is around you, fix that. Because you can. All of us are totally capable of manifesting to be the change that we want to see in the world. We can affect that. If you're wearing a mask, your smile's in your eyes. If you're not wearing a mask, your smile is everywhere you want to be. So be blessed, take care. We'll see you next week. Same cat time, same cat channel. Good night.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama.